What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Debbie Royale YouTube channel. We are here talking NFL Week 7. We just said it.
Very good. Yeah,
Before
it's like it's right on the dock and in the
it's
title.
crazy.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. We're here to talk NFL Week 7. We're going to be talking about if you should start Diontae Johnson, some divisional battles. We're going to preview games. We're going to give some against the grain fantasy starts as well. So make sure you stay tuned through the intro. We'll be back on the other side. All right, guys, welcome back. Like I said, week 7 of the NFL. I can't believe we're already here. A lot has happened, but really what we're getting down to is we're seeing some nice division battles. And so in our storylines to watch today, we're going to be talking about a couple different ones. So NFC South battle, I want to start with this one because we are releasing this one after Thursday Night Football, where the Saints lost to the Jaguars. So the NFC South battle right now, it's kind of the gross one, the gross battle. The Bucks are 3-2. The Falcons are 3-3. Those two teams play each other this week, so we kind of get a little more clarity at the top of that division. And then the Saints are still in it at 3-4. Valiant comeback. They were down, I think 21-9, 24-9, or something like that.
Yeah.
Came back, tied the game, and then just couldn't put it all together and close it out. But very much so, still in that race now. I think obviously the Panthers are out of it. That's why I didn't mention them. How do you kind of see this playing out down the stretch, Randy? Are you thinking that the Bucks are the team to beat, or none of these are the team to beat?
So far I think the Bucks are the team to beat. I think Carr has looked a little shaky in the offense. Obviously, we're going through the injury period where I think he's just getting along past it to where he can finally throw the deep ball again, which is a little bit more of his calling card. The Falcons have looked good yet inconsistent, but they're still scared to let Ritter open up on the offense, and they're playing conservative at that aspect. Teams are fully keen on the running game, making them have to throw the ball a little bit more. So we'll see as the season goes if Ritter is in fact a playable asset in the future, or if he's the reason that they're not in the playoffs. The opposite end with the Bucks, Baker's looked relatively good throughout the whole season. Had one hiccup really there. It almost we thought it was going to be a hiccup anyways against the Saints defense, but a little bit of a bounce back. He gets a real divisional test this week against the Falcons. We'll see again what's going to happen. Terrell's been locking up the receiver one. The game that Baker struggled, Mike Evans was locked up, so we'll see truly how this division will shake out. But I do think the Bucks are the team to beat right now.
Yeah, I'm on the same line of thinking. I came into the season thinking the Falcons would be a little bit better. I also anticipated Desmond Ritter to be a little bit better. I think you can point to a lot of different reasons why the Falcons are at 500 right now. I think Desmond Ritter is the number one reason. I would say he has actually lost them games, which when your quarterback is doing that, that's an unfortunate thing. We do see some situations where everything around the quarterback is not working well. This is a situation where if you plop a great quarterback into it, I think the Falcons are probably undefeated or close to it at this point. The Bucks, Baker, like you said, he's been really good. He's the 13th ranked quarterback per PFF thus far this year. I mean, he's been really good, and I think that that's something that not a lot of people expected. I do think that this matchup this weekend, I wouldn't actually be shocked if the Falcons pulled this one out and kind of took that little half game lead there. But I also think that when it comes down to it, I think the Bucks are going to win this division just from what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts on the NFC?
It's going to be, definitely a race to 10 wins, but most likely a race to 9 wins to win this division. We're hoping not to have any divisions get in with a sub 500 record this year. But yeah, I do think all three of these teams could easily win it. Going into the season, I think there was discussion of all four. Panthers have been worse on offense than we could even assume. The defense has underperformed at times as well. They have had some injuries there, though. So I do think this is complete toss-up. So it's kind of a pick your poison, but 10 wins is definitely the golden number for this division.
Yeah. Just a quick note on on Bryce Young. The only quarterback ranked worse than him per Pro Football Focus is Desmond Ridder. So uh, really gross at the at that level of the division. All right, same thing on the AFC North side. Now this one's a little more exciting because, as you guys probably clicked into it as you're watching, Diontae Johnson's back this week, and we'll get into the division in a second. But we had a little discussion pre-show. Are you starting Diontae Johnson in fantasy this week?
It depends of a lot of situations. So I'll look at this more redraft because a lot of dynasty teams you can kind of figure out more and kind of back end it. Like we discussed a game that I'm going to play against you where I have way too many options of who to play. So Diontae probably doesn't come back in the lineup first week back. But if you've had him on your IR in a redraft league and you're kind of looking at it, definitely playing him over any of these question mark guys, anyone that's really questionable, especially going into the later set of games. Any of these waiver wire guys, like any of the Rams running backs, played him. Any little question marks, he's getting played over, just because he really kind of carries this offense and moves it forward. This offense has looked even more stagnant than usual, even though Pickens has looked relatively good in the absence and needing to get more targets. But the attention away from him is when he's thrived in the past. I think Diontae can come right back and get 6+ targets, almost guaranteed week one. So at a high catch and high volume kind of guy like that, I think it's pretty safe to get anywhere from like 8 to 12 points this week. And with the bye weeks, there's a lot of teams that would love to get 12 points guaranteed in a flex this week.
Yeah, I mean, Deontay is one of those where you're right. I don't think he comes back unless he's fully healthy. And to that point, I mean, a fully healthy Deontay is clearly the best receiver on this team.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have had that debate, like, has Pickens taken the step forward? And I think Pickens has been good at times, but I think what this offense really needs is a guy that can separate, and can kind of create after the catch. Pickens really has never been that. He's been good in the things that he does, but this offense needs a guy like Diontae. And so Diontae still, I think he walks right in and is an immediate target hog. When we talk about this matchup with the Rams, I do think the Rams offense is going to be able to move the ball as well. So I think this is going to be a pass heavy type of week. And so I'm comfortable starting Diontae Johnson in this matchup. I kind of think that, most people will be a little hesitant, and I think for good reason. Guys coming off injuries haven't always performed, but this is one where I wouldn't really want that production on my bench, despite it being tied. I don't love the Steelers offense at all. There's not a whole lot of that offense that I've really been attracted to, but I think with Freiermuth going on IR, there are a ton of things that point to Diontae having a pretty big week this week.
Yeah, and there's going to be 80 to 100 passes thrown in this game. Not even a question. So you'd have to think that the top volume option on the Steelers side of the ball is going to get at least 10 targets. And worst case in his entire career, Diontae has caught 5 of those 10, but 5 catches. He's catching 5 to 8 yards down the field. I mean, we're getting a decent fantasy day, and that's very startable with all the buys that we have this week.
Yeah, for sure. On that same note, the AFC North battle is heating up. Ravens at 4-2 get the Lions this week. That's a huge game. We're going to talk about that one in our game previews. Steelers are 3-2. Browns 3-2 going to the Colts, but the Anthony Richardson less Colts, and Deshaun Watson might be back. That's another quick. Are you starting him question? If Deshaun plays against kind of a poor Colts secondary, are you interested?
I'm definitely interested as a back end one option. Again, a big bye week here, a lot of injuries at the quarterback position. We got the backup bowl with the Bears and the Raiders. Gardner's playing. There's a ton of backups playing in quarterbacks that won't be starters next year easily. So when we're looking at that, I think Deshaun coming back, I think it's very clear he's not coming back unless he's at least 90%. So,
Yeah.
And he's not going to be coming back unless he can put, power on the ball and throw it downfield. So if he's playing, I think I'm comfortable playing him for sure this week, but it is still a back end option because we haven't seen anything besides a back end QB1 from Deshaun so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested in it. I think this is probably a DFS play, because I think his price was probably reduced a little bit from the injury. I haven't really looked at the slate, but
Yeah,
um,
I don't think it's probably reduced enough. Um,
it's fair.
it's also tough. Like I said, a lot of backups. The last time we had a real backup with Aiden O'Connell playing, a lot of people played him at the stone bench for K and DK, and just capitalized on guys like CMC and Justin Jefferson. So I think people will be trying to do the same thing this week with a couple of those guys, and especially with someone like Badgins with the Bears, who does run the ball as well. If he can, not throw 6 picks and run for 50 yards, he can be a guy that gets you 12, 15 points possibly and really makes your week. So because of that, I think Deshaun's probably out of a lot of people's pools for the week.
I'll capitalize. You won't catch me playing anyone in that Raiders Bears matchup
Not
this
not
week.
Devontae, not the squeaky wheel.
Maybe the squeaky wheel is the only one.
It
I have a
would you
bet on DraftKings.
would you be surprised if he gets 20 targets? Because
N-
I
n-
wouldn't.
No, not at all. I mean, plus with the quarterback shift, like
Yeah.
I my bet on DraftKings, I have a parlay for that game. It's 3 unders and a Devontae Adams touchdown. Like, sign me up.
The
And I almost
touchdown.
went Devontae over on his receptions, but if I'm going unders, I gotta just commit to the bit, right? And then I didn't mention the Bengals. The Bengals are on bye. So this AFC North battle, a lot of over 500 teams. I think that continues this week. Do you see the Steelers pulling it out against the Rams?
I don't, but I also didn't see the Steelers being 3-2 right now. So,
It's
you know,
fair. They
Mike
shouldn't
Tomlin
be.
is a wizard.
They shouldn't be. They
No,
they sh-
it's phenomenal defense and even better coaching.
yeah.
The offense, I mean, you have literally everywhere in the country, even in Ohio, chanting to fire your offensive coordinator. I think that says something.
Yeah, it sure does. Who do you think wins this division if it, plays out the rest of the way?
Man, I was very confident with the Ravens going into the season, but this Browns defense has
Mhm.
been near historic levels of good. And if Deshaun can get back and actually perform at all, I think they have a true shot to win it. I do think the Bengals are going to be coming out of this bye week absolutely firing next week. Once Joe Burrow's full health, I think they have a real shot. I'm going to stick with the Ravens because of the early lead, but they are 0-2 in the division. So that's going to be a real Achilles heel once we get down to it.
Yeah, I think the Browns win it. I've not seen a defense quite like that ever. I
That's
I think I try to think like last year's Cowboys defense was really good, but I think like the early 2000s Ravens is the last time I've seen a defense like this. Like it's just elite at every level. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm maybe like exaggerating because I know that
no,
they're performing at
it's
historic
not.
levels.
Yeah, it's not elite players at every level. Obviously, they have
Right.
one of, if not the most elite edge rusher, but they're playing well above board. I mean, this is a defense that completely switched to like I believe it was like 80% zone coverage last year. Now they're like 85% man coverage. I think it's very clearly working, and
It's
it's
crazy
allowing them to
how
blitz and make different avenues for Miles Garrett to get through. So, and really their biggest heel in this division. Obviously, Steelers playing good on offense, Bengals ultra explosive offense. That's going to be an issue. But if they're able to contain those, and then the Ravens with Lamar running the ball has been what has killed the Browns in the past. So I think they have the speed at the linebacker position and the attacking style of defense to stop that this year. That's only reason because I'm still not sold on the offense, obviously, but that's
yeah,
the only reason why I'm right there with them. But yeah.
yeah. And I will say too, we mentioned that the Browns needed to play more man coverage last year. It was pretty evident.
Yes.
It's wild how that defense was called last year. Okay, last thing. First head coach to get fired. I mean, this has to be coming soon, right? Like that's the stretch of the season where we're getting to. I
Yeah.
think the first one last year was week 9 or 10, if I remember correctly.
It was, yeah. So, yeah, I know a lot of people are assuming it's Frank Reich with the Panthers. Um, I'm a little standoffish on that. I do think they give him another year. Obviously, it's his first year in the building. There's a lot of, well, maybe the coaching staff didn't want Bryce, but the owner did. So there's a lot of learning curve there and trying to figure out what he can do best because that's, again, it's a rookie quarterback. Every rookie quarterback has a shortened playbook. But it does seem like his is a bit shorter. So I'm hoping we get to see a little bit more open and better offensive line play for him as well. And I do think they're looking to add in a top receiver, at least the best they can, at the trade deadline to help out his development as well. So I think he's a little bit staved of his execution there. I hope it's McDaniels for personal.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I kind of think it could be McDaniels, but the one I'm trying to remember, I just had it in my head, and when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, that's kind of the clear. Oh, Brandon Staley to me seems like the clear pick. So, and the reason for that, I mean, I think he's a good coach personally. I think he makes some crazy in-game decisions, but they're based in like things that a lot of teams are doing. His team just never executes it, which I think also speaks to him. But you look at we're going to talk about the game here shortly, but I mean they're about to be 2-4, and this is
Yeah,
not a team that should be 2-4. So I think we could even see it maybe after this week, but I'd guess in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
I see, and I think he's as good as McDaniels or anyone else to be fired this year. But I do think they would give him the entire year because firing him and bringing someone in isn't going to change anything for their playoff hopes. You might as well let him try it.
Yeah.
And then I do think he is fired if they don't, at least make the playoffs this year. Um, they've been way too good for the last 2 years and haven't done anything with it. It's looking the same again. They're losing a lot of close games, and a lot of it is pinpointed on his decision making at times. I don't know, like you said, a lot of teams are doing the same stuff. I don't know how much that's on him necessarily and just the execution of his quarterback or his defense or drops here and there, bad blocking here and there. It all just adds up to a fired coach if you don't make the playoffs and probably win a game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's where he's at, which I don't know if he makes it that far. If they dive here, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
it could get real rough.
if they lose 4 straight games, sure, but like I just don't envision the Chargers doing that.
Here's the thing: they could also beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs are kind of
Yeah,
due for one of those weird games where they drop one. The other thing is they get the Bears, likely with Justin Fields back. With everything I've read, he's already
don't
starting
hit
to
him
get grip
myself.
strength back. Then that's next week. So, and then Jets. So they should get right. But if they don't in that stretch, that's like if you lose to the Bears and then lose to the Jets, it's over. Like you're done. You're done. You're toast.
It's fair. It's fair.
Okay, let's get into some game previews. I mentioned we'll talk about the Lions at the Ravens, the Chargers at the Chiefs, and the Dolphins at the Eagles. First one we're talking about Lions at Ravens. 3-point favorites at home, but it kind of indicates, we've talked about the line for home teams. If it's a 3-point, it's barely favored. I think I saw something that this year it's been like 1.7 points is the cutoff where that's if it's a 1-point favorite, you're not a favorite, or a 1.5-point favorite, you're not a favorite. 3 points technically still is. Over under here is 43 in this game. I did see Marvin Jones is out for personal reasons. Not sure that matters a whole lot with Jameson Williams back. That's one of my main questions, though. So Jameson Williams kind of used sparingly, but had that one nice catch. He's kind of looking like he did at Alabama. Do you think this is one of those weeks where they start to incorporate him more? And are you interested in him as like a shot flex play here this week?
I do not think it was one of those weeks that they incorporate him. I don't think this is a team that does that.
Yeah.
So I like as we've seen with Gibbs, like they're using him, but they're not fully incorporating him. With Gibbs playing this week and Reynolds also being a little baked up, I do think Gibbs can get a bigger workload this week than we've seen him all year. But I do think this is a team that's going to be throwing the ball a ton. The Ravens' rush defense will do its best. So I do think it's smart to move the ball a bit more. But with Williams, he's still learning the playbook, like in-game playbook. Obviously, I'm sure he knows all the plays by now, but
Right.
he was in last year. He was coming off an injury, didn't really have training camp, had a couple games, had like 4 catches, got injured for the year, came back, was a little banged up to even get to training camp this year, got suspended for gambling. Like he's nowhere near in tune with Goff and with this offense to really be a viable top end threat. So while I do think he can make the big plays because we've seen it, I mean, 2 of his like 6 total career catches have been amazing big plays. So I do think he's a weapon that could score this week, and that's why he's kind of a flex viable guy. But I mean, this is Amon-Ra, this is Laporta, Gibbs being back. This is a Gibbs game. Those are the guys I'm rolling with, not Jameson, who still is trying to overcome Reynolds for snaps and be on the field.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. That's kind of where I was leaning as well. The craziest part is I don't really see a very good. So the way I think you unlock Jameson is you do sit back for a little while, you run some deeper routes and things like that. But the next 3 games, the pass rush is going to be crazy. Ravens,
Yeah.
Raiders with Max Crosby, Chargers with Khalil Mack and crew that week. And so I think really the Bears game in November, which I'll be attending, by the way. That'll be pretty sick. That could be the Jameson Williams breakout if there is one. But that's not something that I think is going to happen. To the point that like, okay, we've had the breakout and it sticks. Like, I think he could have a breakout type of game. It's just, do we see consistency after that? I don't even know if that happens this year.
I'd be more confident in saying it won't happen this year until Montgomery's back, until they're more relying on the run game again. Not that Gibbs can't do it, but I think we all assume Gibbs isn't getting 30 carries a game. I think we've always thought, especially for his first year or two, it was, a max of, 10 to 12 carries and probably up to 20 touches or targets in there a game. Especially with them bringing in Monty to be more of a more workhorse back, which, and he's been thriving. So I think it's very clear once he's back, they're going to rely more on the run game, more on the play action, and that's when Jameson can absolutely take the top off of any defense in the league.
Yeah, for sure. Who are you picking in this game?
Lions, because who's not rooting for the Lions? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially living where I do, not wanting the Packers to win, and the Bears being very disappointing. We're going to root for the Lions, full sail.
Yeah. No, I'm into it. I also think the Lions are simply a better football team right now than the Ravens. The Ravens have really struggled on offense the last couple of weeks. They're not, doing well in the red zone. I think that's going to be a big problem against a team that can put up points like the Lions. I'll take the Lions, and I'll take the over, by the way.
Same for me. I will say, though, Lamar has been playing really well. He's completing, I believe, over 70% of his passes currently. He's absolutely killing it. This offense just hasn't looked good. They also, I think last week was the first time they had all Andrews, Bateman, Odell, and Flowers all on the field at the same time, really, fully healthy. So I'm hoping, in 4 weeks or so, this offense can start tuning a bit more. I was actually texting with one of our friends, Sweet, who's been on here multiple times, that we would really love it if the Ravens traded for like Henry or just anyone to really make this running game an actual threat, because it's not. So maybe if it's Mitchell truly breaking out here or something, but something needs to change, because at this point teams are fully keying in on Lamar and any read option because they know they can stop every back that they have. So they need someone in here to change this dynamic to really unlock this offense.
Yeah, you're right. Lamar is playing out of his mind though, and I've had a lot of arguments about that after the 7-drop escapade performance, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah,
It was not a performance. It was just terrible, terrible, terrible
calamity.
stuff. Yeah, for sure. All right, next one, Chargers at Chiefs. Chargers are 5-point road dogs. Over under in this one is 47.5. We've had a bit of discussion about these two teams. I think the one player that I wanted to mention here, Rashee Rice, seems to be coming into his own as the top wide receiver option for the Chiefs. Travis Kelce hasn't really lost a step. Crazy what Taylor Swift will do for a man. But Rashee Rice has been good. Is he to the point where like you're throwing him in your flex and you're just pretty confident that that's gonna work out for you?
I think in especially games like this, where yes, this line's been hammered down. I believe it opened at like 50, and it's down to 47.5 now. I do think this is a game that can hit the over. This Chargers defense has not been great, and I do think Rice can have a pretty big game. Really, like we weren't sure about him coming in this year because the Chiefs, like, they keep drafting. They drafted Sky, they drafted all this, they brought in these guys, and no one's really like worked out and stepped up, alongside Hill or since Hill's left. Rice has just been consistent. He hasn't made mistakes, and he's gaining more trust with Mahomes because of it, and he's capitalizing. So all props to him. I do think he's flex viable almost every week now, unless it's a really bad game environment, weather-wise, or we're looking at them. There's been multiple games this year where the Chiefs really aren't scoring. If we're looking at something like that, and that's what we're assuming going into the week, I do think he would need a touchdown to be really relevant on those kind of weeks. But this week, he can easily get a touchdown. I think he'd easily get 5+ catches.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting Justin Watson's out too.
That's the other
So
thing. Yes.
while that sounds like, oh, who cares? It's Justin Watson. He's on the field for the Chiefs. I don't know if you've watched the Chiefs this year, but Justin Watson's been playing a ton of snaps and he's been getting targets. I go ahead.
I was gonna say it's the same thing with Rashee Rice, though. It's a guy that when he's been targeted, he hasn't made mistakes. He's out there blocking every single play, running every route as hard as possible. He's gaining trust. No one else has done it except Rice through this year. Sky Moore has been on the field all the time, but they just have him running crossers back and forth because he's not trusted by Mahomes to really catch the ball at this point. So and no one can really trust Tony to do anything.
Who would have thought that in this matchup, Rashee Rice would be the top rookie wide receiver that we talk about, with Quentin Johnston struggling on the other side? Yeah. Quentin Johnston, for what it's worth, they highlighted how they need to get him more yards after the catch opportunities this week. I think I might have been a week early in thinking that Quentin Johnston was going to be a focal point coming out of their bye. I don't know that he's going to be a focal point, but I do think that they're going to simplify some things for him because they're asking him to do some stuff that he's never done before. So I'm curious to see if he starts to turn it on a bit.
Yeah, I kind of saw in last week's game. I think he's kind of gotten a bit of bad timing because they are trying to reintegrate and rework in Eckler at the same time as they're trying to figure out this receiving core. And Palmer, isn't, again, a guy that's not making mistakes, and he's on the field and playing well. It doesn't really matter because Allen's the only one really getting all these targets. But I think they are trying to work slowly Eckler back into it. I think it's kind of a bummer for Quentin Johnston, who's, they're talking about scheming him up touches, yards after catch. They want to do the same thing for Eckler. It's going to be tough to really – you're going to call 6 wide receiver screens, or you're going to just have him run a route deep and try and get open that way, and then let Eckler clean up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious what you're going to do in that situation when Eckler is clearly the better player for this team.
Yeah, that's true. I'm going to take the Chiefs, but I actually think the Chargers will cover in this game and the over.
Yeah, I'll take the over 27-24 Chiefs.
Nice.
Very specific, but this game always seems to be that way.
It does. It always, like, either 27 or 28 on the winning side, and then in the 20s.
Cap a 30.
Right? For sure. All right, final game is probably the game of the week. This is the game I'm most excited about. This is a nice little island game as well. This is Sunday Night Football. Dolphins at the Eagles. Eagles are -3, 3-point favorites at home. Over under in this one's 51.5, the highest over under of the week. Also, where I think the most points will be scored, which means that it's going to be a 16-14 game
Yeah, I was
somehow.
gonna say.
That's how it typically goes. But I mean, in this game, I know a lot of people are debating the Dolphins running backs. They're kind of back to debating the Eagles running backs because Kenneth Gainwell has started to see more snaps. I don't think you should debate anyone in this game. I think you just play them. I know, like, you don't really want to play Jeff Wilson Jr.
Is he fully activated and
I think
everything?
he's actually activated this week.
That's my concern.
I don't have any interest in that, but I do have interest in Devontae Smith. I think this is a huge Devontae Smith game because I do think that the Dolphins will do stuff on defense to take A.J. Brown out a little bit. I think that this is a game where a ton of points are scored. So this is where I want all my fantasy players to be.
Yeah, and if you have all your fantasy players in this game, you're probably 4-1 or 5-1 or 6-0. So
Yep.
it's gonna be a fun Sunday night game. Hopefully, obviously, I think Swift should be all right. Hurts great. Mostert should be good enough. I think he probably gets in the end zone to stave off any issues against the Eagles' run defense. But yeah, I mean, I really think the top options get big plays, and that's Hill and AJ Brown. But I think the go-to guys that get, I mean, I believe Smith got like 11 targets last week. I think we're going to see another big game from him, like you said. I think Waddle's going to get a few more targets than he's been getting. I think he's going to have a pretty good day. So I really don't see a bad option. And the way Goddard's been playing, I don't know how you can sit him. Yeah, it's full sale, everyone. Eagles bounce back though. In the over, I'll go over.
I'm also going over. I'm going Dolphins to win this game, and the reason I'm going Dolphins to win this game is because where the Eagles struggle on defense, coverage, obviously, just in general coverage, but like middle of the field coverage is one of their weak points right now. That is exactly where Tua Tagovailoa just kills teams.
That's true.
I think this is a huge Tyreek game. I think Jalen Waddle, by the way, just a quick little stat, over 30% of target share after returning from injury a couple weeks ago. Last 2 games, he's just dominating that with Tyreek Hill. And he is the wide receiver, I believe, 11 or 13 in the last 2 weeks. Be comfortable with Jalen Waddle in your lineup. I've had a few people ask me some questions. Be comfortable with it, especially in this matchup where I think they will take advantage of the middle of the field, get him out in space, get him running. I think we could see a massive, massive game. Dolphins and over. Before we get out of here.
I was going to say, I'd be pretty sad if this isn't an over game, like you said.
Yeah, it's we always do this. It's going to be an under. I almost want to bet the under simply because of this entire discussion.
I was going to say, but if you bet the under, it's going to be the over. So
it's fair.
Let me know if you bet the under.
Yeah, right. All right. Before we get out of here, we do Against the Grain Fantasy starts if it's your first time watching or listening. These are guys that you're probably maybe considering for your flex, but it's not your favorite option. This gets a little dicier with the bye weeks and everything because there are some players that you might just be forced to play. Randy, who is your Against the Grain Fantasy start this week?
Yeah, so I'm going Curtis Samuel. I know the Giants defense looked relatively decent last week against the Bills. I think the Bills just figured they were going to win the game and didn't really try that hard. At least that's what it kind of felt like. But Curtis Samuel has quietly probably had the best season of his career. Arguably, a lot of these weeks has been the best receiver on his own team. Really outplaying Jahan Dotson. He's relegated him all the way to field goal kick holder, which is more of a joke than not. But he's got about a 15% target share this season. He was a top 24 fantasy wide receiver the last 3 weeks, wide receiver 12, 14, and 23. I think we're going to get above 23 this week. Again, with all those buys, it really does help. New York Giants, they're really struggling against slot receivers, even though they are doing a little bit better against this in-man coverage than a lot of the other teams. So there's a little bit of a toss-up there in what's going to be best. But I think with him truly being their true slot receiver, he's going to have a pretty good day. He's got a great touchdown equity on his team, being a running and receiving option. I think he's going to have the hot streak continues. I would not be shocked if he was the wide receiver 1 this week.
Yeah. This is the thing that, like, last week I was like, probably can't play him. And then, and the reason is simply because it's Curtis Samuel in an offense where he's supposed to be the wide receiver 3. And it's kind of clear to me that he's one of Hal's favorites, if not his favorite. I actually think he likes throwing to him more than he likes throwing to McLaurin, and Jahan Dotson is the backup kick holder now. So that guy's irrelevant.
Giants highest PPR points allowed per target and 10th most PPR points allowed to slot receivers. All sides are really pointing towards it. And then the red zone target share of, I think he's like 70% or so.
Yeah.
If they're getting in the end zone, I'm pretty confident it's either Brian Robinson or Curtis Samuel. And I'll take my odds there with how many times I've seen Brian Robinson get stuffed at the goal line.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. I'm going Romeo Doubs. I think there's a clear reason why you'd hesitate on Romeo Doubs just based on their last outing. Jordan Love, 16 of 30, 3 interceptions. Romeo Doubs had 1 catch for 4 yards. And so when you see that, then they go into the bye, and then they come out of the bye, and you're like, I'm not sure about that. But they're going against the Broncos defense. And, while the Broncos defense has a lot of names that are recognizable and that, we thought were really good, including Pat Surtain, and I'm not really worried about the Broncos defense. It's atrocious. It's really, really bad. And when you look at how the targets have been dispersed in this Green Bay offense, when they are clicking, it's Romeo Doubs that's been really good in those opportunities. I think that this is a get-right game for the Packers. I think that the Packers come out slinging it. I think that Romeo Doubs is the clear guy that they say, okay, you're not going to be a full-time slot receiver, obviously. Jaden Reed has that kind of locked down. But what we're going to do is we're going to get you on the side that Pat Surtain is not really sitting in. He doesn't really shadow. We're going to have Christian Watson go out there and just kind of beat him deep, because I think you can actually do that right now. And then Doubs is going to just eat up targets underneath. The one, concern I have about this would be Aaron Jones hopefully coming back, but I'm skeptical that Aaron Jones is even healthy based on the fact that he came back from this injury, played, and then every sign pointed to him continuing to be healthy, and he's been out since then. I do expect that he will be back this week. Some of those targets underneath, I think, could go to him, but I think Doubs is posting like an 8-catch, 60-some yard, probably a touchdown performance, and that might be good for a wide receiver 1 on the week. I'm into playing Romeo Doubs in my flex this week.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, like you said, the only really times Surtain's been beat has been deep, so you might as well put Watson over there. I do think they move him around a bit. Like you said, Surtain, unless it's like a one-option team, he's not really shadowing. So I do think he has a good chance of being on the other side, running free. Him and Watson, the only guys that were, above like a 50% route run last week. So Watson is back to full strength. I do think that's a concern. When he was gone, Doubs had 3 top 20 receiving weeks. I think the talent's there. I think the trust is there. I think he's still building that trust with Watson. When it comes down to it, I think Doubs is going to be the target. My concern is Aaron Jones healthy? Are they only throwing this ball 20 times? Like, that's my
Yeah.
only hang up with Dobbs at all this week, because this Broncos rush defense has been atrocious. So I do think that between the corpse that is AJ Dillon and
Yeah.
half healthy Aaron Jones, they might run the ball 30 times still. And that's the only concern for me.
Yeah. I think that's fair. But I'm playing him everywhere.
Yeah,
Probably in
again,
DFS too.
there's a lot of, I mean, if you have your studs, you're playing your studs. But when we're getting down to it, you're playing your flex, possibly if you have 3 receiver league. Uh, you're getting down to it. Are you playing Gabe Davis? Are you playing him over him? I think that's a true toss up for both of our guys. Michael Thomas, he's getting 4 catches for 40 yards. I think I'm playing an upside guy like Samuel or Dobbs over him this week.
Yeah, for sure.
Jerry Jeudy might not be in this team next week. I don't know if you play him.
Yeah, I would easily play both of our against the grain stars over Jeudy, to be honest. So, all right, Randy, do you have anything to add before we get out of here?
Let's go.
All right. That'll do it. We'll be back next week, hopefully a little earlier for you. I know this one's coming out a little late, but
crazy weeks for us. We'll get back
certainly.
to it.
We will. We'll be a little earlier next week, but thank you guys for watching. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, drop a comment, let us know what you think. Tell us we're stupid. I don't care. I'll fight with you in the YouTube comments, or maybe I won't. Maybe you're right and we're stupid about something. But if
Definitely
you're on the Yeah, for sure. And then if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you head over to the podcast, subscribe to the W Royale feed. We do drop this. We drop our college football reaction show. There's a lot going on there. So thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.